With a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our moderator and speakers for the session. Thank you for that. And it's over to our moderator, Ambika Avargal. Over to you, ma'am.
Please sit down. Good afternoon. Sattame varala. Onnu varala. I'm not getting motivation. I need some more motivation. Okay, let's do some warm-up. Sharia. How many of you do yoga? Okay, let's test your yoga power, okay? In the audience, student makkal yarla kaiya thookungo. Rendu kai. Students, okay. All right. Academia, faculty, lecturers, placement officers, please raise your hands. One here, few here. Okay. Rendu kai thookinalum oru head count down. Right? Okay. Industry bodies, raise of hands. Okay. Yeah. People in the front too. Yoga is for all. It's universal. Okay, so the subject that we're going to talk today, I think all of you know it. What are the opportunities and challenges in AI? Students at the back, can you please settle down? Thank you. Let's start with a quick round of what is it that you want to hear from us? Can we take exactly 60 seconds? What is it that students want to take away from this session? Are there any mics behind? Anyone there? What do you want to take away? You're going to spend 40 minutes with us. What is it that you want to take away? Yes, we have hands there. We have quite a few hands. Yes, please. Introduce yourself and tell us what is it. I think we have one mic there. It's going to come to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sayed. I'm from Dhaka. So, I have a doubt. If a person finding any trend using AI, who we can blame? If a person, one person, AI use பண்ணி ஒரு ட்ரெயினை கனெக்ட் பண்ணும்போது can we AI ஜெனரேட் பண்ணவங்க இந்த ட்ரெயினை கனெக்ட் பண்ணுறது AI யூஸ் பண்ணுறாரு அப்படின்னு சொல்லி அவங்க யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. அதாவது அந்த ட்ரெயினை கனெக்ட் பண்ணுறது ஜஸ்ட் இன்டர்நெட் டு யூஸ் AI அப்படிங்கிறவங்க சொல்லுவாங்க. I think it's a big challenge which we want to identify.
We heard you. Thank you. I had one more person here, and then we'll get started.
Just started.
Just started. Hi, Suresh.
Explainability of AI. The reason is, like we heard of the previous basically a network between but given that it is a simple play, very frankly, we are talking about API is because of both law and compute power.
Okay.
But still, a lot of people don't understand how to get such developments in behavior. So the question is, I would definitely like to take maybe something around explainability. How this thing works.
Okay, explainability. Wonderful. Okay, we'll get started. My name is Ambika Natarajan. I'm a Senior Vice President, HCL Tech. We manage a line of business called EdTech, where me and my team, we're responsible for product innovation, solution, and customer success. More on that later, but I have some very eminent panelists here today. I'm going to start with Suresh. So, how many of you have heard of AGS Entertainment? Any raise of hands? Okay. How many of you have heard of Veranda? Okay, quite a few hands, Suresh. So here's a man who looks at entertainment, the business of entertainment, and also runs a company that ensures that students like you are prepared well enough to crack exams. So Suresh Kalpati, thank you so much for joining us, CEO of Veranda. Next to him is the person who comes from an organization that in many ways is responsible for making this whole AI conversation so universal and global. Cecil Sundar, you would have seen him in other panel discussions as well. So he's a director from Microsoft, my other co-panelists. Welcome, Cecil. And on this side, many of you wouldn't know CP Jois, but I take a lot of pleasure and excitement to introduce CP to you. How many of you had a dream of flying an aircraft? Okay, I'm sure some of you can still pursue that. So here's a person who's a pilot, an aerodynamic subject matter expert, the CIO of ACT, one of the largest assessment conducting bodies in the United States of America. He's come all the way from the US. So thank you, CP, for joining us. So you can see it's a very diverse panel we have here. So the questions are also going to be very diverse. So we're going to start off with Cecil. Give us a perspective on the subject, which is what are the challenges and the opportunities that's coming up for skills in the AI ecosystem?
So I'll start with the good thing, opportunities, and then good morning, everyone. So the first thing when you think about opportunities in AI is it is going to transform every person's life, every sector, every industry in the world. So that means it's going to drive economic growth. It's going to unleash human potential that has never been done before. It's going to enable and empower creativity. அது என்ன மீனிங்னா சார் ஓகே ஐ ஜஸ்ட் ட்ரை டு எக்ஸ்பிளைன் இன் தமிழ் கிரியேட்டிவிட்டினா யூ கேன் டெவலப் அண்ட் டிப்ளாய் products and services from any corner of the world. It doesn't need to be in states, it doesn't need to be in Chennai, or it doesn't need to be in Bangalore. It can be in the rural part of India, or it can be in the cities also. So the opportunities are humongous. And just in terms of the growth itself, we are expecting tens and almost 10 to 15 trillion dollar economic growth, GDP growth in the years to come within a decade. Within a decade, that's if you think about India's GDP, it is 3.5 trillion. Global GDP, we are expecting around 15 to 20 trillion GDP growth. Along with that comes job opportunities, like almost another 20 to 30 million AI-driven job opportunities are going to be there. So when these opportunities are existing, it's a demand versus supply. The demand is there. I'll talk about the risk a little later. When there's so much of demand, AI-driven job is there. Where it will land? It will land where the skill sets are. The skill sets has to be developed across the globe. From Microsoft perspective, couple of weeks before, we launched something called Advantage India, where Satya Nadella, our CEO, has launched a program to train and develop 2 million Indians in AI. That's a significant opportunity. We'll be partnering with industry, we'll be partnering with the education institutions and all those stuff. So just in terms of opportunity, the confidence we need to have, at least students need to have, entrepreneurs need to have is, this is an era of AI. We cannot sit idle, we cannot rest on this thing. So the idea is, can we train or reskill your employees? One, can we train our students in AI from the time they are in high school or from the time they're in higher secondary school or in education institution to capitalize on the growing AI job opportunities? And that is a significant thing we are looking at. In terms of challenges, there is always a fear. Whenever the technology is rolled out, there is always a fear of job loss. That is one challenge that we have to go through. But these jobs are going to be repositioned in the sense, if one sector or one domain loses the job due to automation, there is a possibility of increased job potential in the same horizontal area. That is also a possibility is there. But the biggest challenge is our own mindset, right? Our own mindset in understanding that it's an opportunity and our willingness to learn. This is the most important thing I see. The skill set gap we currently have needs to be bridged with developing our own mindset. So that is the most important challenge we need to go through.
Thank you, Cecil. I think the last line you said, the skill set gap. I think இங்க இருக்கிற எல்லா மாணவர்களுக்கும் அது ஒரு கேள்வி. What is it that I need to add to my current set of skills? I'll give you a simple example and then I'll probably pass it on to CP. So, a couple of years back, we all were worried that cloud is coming in, and so people who work on, on jobs and roles that are pertaining to data center, it's going to go away. But on the contrary, the massive opportunities that cloud brought in, from an optimization engineering to a cloud native architecture, right? A cloud optimization. So it brought in a whole lot of new jobs. Were we prepared for it? And students, this is specifically for you. Whether you take cloud, whether you take data, whether you take social, analytics, SMAC, அப்படின்னு ஒரு combination வந்தது a couple of years back. So, இது எல்லாத்துலயுமே there is more and more opportunity. Internet of Things is another big ticket item. Do we have people to do some of the high-end IoT work today? We are constantly looking out. So, there is a shortage of certain skills that need to be added. And I'm going to ask CP to touch upon that, because for those of you who don't know, CP also builds a whole lot of aviation simulation. So he is a researcher. He's also a faculty in some of the top Ivy League universities in the United States. So, yeah, CP.
I think, thank you, first of all, and for the introduction, thanks. And I deem it an honor to be here. It's a privilege. So that the travel was well worth it, and just being here and seeing this group of people is just fascinating. I think there are two perspectives that I think we should clarify. Number one, does AI have a role, which Cecil spoke to, have a role in skilling, which is, can it help with skill development? That's one side to it. The other side is, how do we gain skills in AI so that we can be ready for it? So in order to apply AI in any domain, you first of all need to have some skills in AI to even begin that journey. So that's number one, which is what he's talking about, getting people trained with the right skills so you're ready to go apply AI to whatever domain that you present yourself to. When it comes to the use of AI within skilling, what we are seeing overseas, of course, and in the Indian context, and I come here very often, I think predominantly is that there are so many aspects of every industry that intelligence will take over. We call it AI today. It's not entirely new. Somebody raised the topic of understanding what the technology in the backyard actually means. And essentially, if you think about it, all AI goes back to machine learning. A machine being able to learn how to go do things that you were doing. Not learn once, but learn continually, and then revise the interpretation to make it better on a continual model. That's the essence of AI, right? And the reliability, the mechanics of how it works, and the interpretability is the bigger question. Can we interpret a model like that, or is it all magic in a box? It doesn't have to be. Statistics is at the base of all machine learning. Probability theory in core mathematics is where machine learning sits, and that's how you build AI type models. Those models then take over and do what you can do, but naturally they're only limited to whatever you can ask it to learn from. The fundamental difference that's come about in the world of skilling, and the use cases are many, and we can talk about it over the next half an hour, 40 minutes. But essentially, to be able to have a machine learn from a data set versus what we have traditionally done for the last 40 years is program our ways into telling a computer to do something. Here, we're allowing the computer to learn on its own by watching things on its own. So it's pretty much distilling or capturing rules from what it is observing rather than expecting you to define all of it. Now, where is the benefit? The benefit basically is you can be certain that a machine can comprehend and see more things in a data set than the human mind can comprehend on its own. And that's the power basically behind AI in itself. In terms of use cases, I'm going to rest that point for now. We'll come back to it. But there are so many use cases we see when we deal with college students. The company I'm with as a CIO predominantly helps build assessments to ready students, high school students, to get to college. In doing so, we have always used heuristics-based models, which are static models. They have been revised with time once in a while. But the power of technology today, with machine learning being available to us, it doesn't have to be once in a while. It almost updates itself regularly, and therefore the relevance of what you will see today and what someone will see tomorrow could be entirely different. That's the power of machine learning. It comes back to domains like aviation, of course. In every aspect of aviation, in every aspect of education, edtech, you can see artificial intelligence playing out. It's not that we didn't know statistics before. We knew what to do with statistics for years on. Core mathematics we have known, probability theory we have known. So what's different? I think the ability for Microsoft-like companies to miniaturize, number one, storage, memory, compute power. The availability of computational power, I think, is a fundamental shift that's happened in the last 20 years. Especially in the last 10 years, it's become more affordable, more accessible, and therefore, as we build these models, what I could not run when I used to work for United Airlines, I would run crew pairing algorithms for the airline, I would run flight operations technology, I would be part of airport operations staffing, I would do crew pairing, which is cockpit crew pairing, roster development of which pilots fly which flight when. We would run the algorithm for hours at length to generate a week worth of a roster. Today, something like that would run in a couple of minutes, maybe, using machine learning, right? And so that computational advantage we have gained, thanks to companies like Microsoft or Amazon, is where we basically see the shift having happened, which is what has made it ready for you all to come and apply it.
Wonderful. Thank you, CP. Suresh, a trick question for you. Since you come at an intersection of, competitive exams and entertainment, I'm sure students, when they crack their competitive exams after going through your coaching, coaching sessions, must be going and enjoying at the movie theater, right? So, where do you see from a digital entertainment, the progression that's happening because of the tech revolution, and also the nature of competitive exams itself, from a coverage and the rubrics, what goes into it? So, where do you see some of the new skills that are going to be tested for candidates or aspirants, who come and take such sessions for jobs like these? So where do you see that pivoting with all this AI augmentation coming into the play?
Thank you for the opportunity. Great to see all of you today. I'll probably cover 2-3 aspects when I do the answer. The first is, I think we've been talking about skills, people talk about productivity improvement, and at the same time there is this scare that AI might replace the existing workforce that could be unemployment. And I will talk a couple of examples from the type of work we do. Right? So one part of the business that we do is we do a lot of publication in lots of books that people learn from. So about a year ago, we put a small team together to produce a book on advancements in cybersecurity. This is something that used to take 5 to 6 months from start to finish. we used ChatGPT and we got that done in 6 weeks. So what took 6 months before was done in 6 weeks, and that is clearly a jump in productivity that people talk about. We are seeing it in the type of work we do. Now, did that mean we cut back on our workforce? No. We today jumped the number of books that we produced 5x. And we actually added more people to the team because we actually found that this can be a far more profitable business because it took us a lot less effort to produce the same book. So the employment, in fact, went up. The productivity went up 3-4 times. And obviously, it means more profitable as a business. That's the first. The second one is one of our businesses does software training. When that business started, we used to provide 24/7 customer support. A student could call up 2 in the morning and get doubts clarified. We slowly rolled that back because it was becoming prohibitively costly. Recently, about 6 months ago, we again brought back 24/7 customer support with different levels of gradations. So a lot of the initial queries are handled through AI. But if it becomes a bit more complex, or if we think it is starting to hallucinate a bit, and then a human intervention happens. So essentially what used to be a team of 40 people to drive customer support today is being done by 8 people. So productivity went up significantly. We actually hired 8 new people to do this work. And for, of course, the customers, they now again back to getting 24/7 customer support. And for us, it's become a lot more productive, right? So on one side, we are seeing significant jump in productivity anywhere between 5 to 6 times. Costs have come down, made it more efficient, and we are actually hiring more people because there are now a lot more opportunities that didn't look feasible before. From a perspective of entertainment, and this is quite complex, most of us know about de-aging software that was used to produce a lot of movies. In a couple of our movies, we are now starting to use those tools to do it. What used to be complex in terms of setting up very large sets, we are now able to replace that using AI. So if there is a song sequence with 6,000 people, we could actually now do it with 600 people, and you will not know the difference. And that's a huge savings. What is also the flip side, and there was a lot of this conversation in Hollywood, and where the industry almost came to a stop because of this, is because if you look at the type of fees that we pay some of the lead actors in India, it is today anywhere between 100 to 200 crores for a movie. And AI can produce the same thing at a fraction of a cost. And that led to a lot of issues even in Hollywood, because the question becomes, who owns that persona? I can do a Sylvester Stallone by paying very little, except employ some tools from Microsoft at a fraction of a cost and do an entire movie. And so the industry came to a stop, and I think there is a conclusion saying that the persona still is owned by the person, and you still have to pay him even if you generate it using AI. So I think it's also leading to a whole lot of new challenges, even in an entertainment industry, even in other industries, where we have not been there before. For instance, recently I was in a conference where I had to make a speech. Usually my secretary works with me quite a bit to prepare. Takes about a week to 2 weeks. Now it takes 2 hours. But I still make that speech, and if there are errors in the speech, it is still mine. It cannot be relegated to saying, you know what, ChatGPT made mistakes. It's still yours to own. So there is a level of human understanding, the role humans will play in a society that's emerging, be it in entertainment, be it in education. So, lot of improvement in productivity, and I think it will also lead to a lot of new employment generation. New economic opportunities are just being discovered, which did not exist before generative AI.
Right. Excellent points there, Suresh, which I think one of the gentlemen in the audience asked. So the accountability still lies with the person who's using that information, either to convey or to make a decision or to arbitrate. If you're in the legal field, you use a lot of that information for arbitration and other legal purposes. So the accountability, so the buck stops at a particular point, and that point is the end point of consumption, which is people like you and me who use multiple sources. So, Cecil, I'm coming back to you because Microsoft also democratized accessibility to a whole lot of the new age AI courses. And I know Microsoft Learn has been there for decades, making some of the most latest areas, right, accessible to students, trainers. You've got a huge learning fraternity. However, I think the question that students have today, and a lot of students walk up and say, okay, I get certified, but what beyond, which will make me crack that interview? What are the skills that I need beyond getting a certification that will increase the probability of me getting the job? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we are moving past specific skill set, a skill set, to landing a job right now, right? That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on individual's ability to articulate what he or she is made up of. It's just not the technical capability, right? Technical capability for students is one piece of the puzzle. And then do you have the leadership? Do you have the communication ability? Can you communicate what you have learned? And then can you articulate? It doesn't matter. Language is, see, whether you know English very well or not is not a problem nowadays. Do you have the ability to articulate what you have learned is going to be the key, in the interview process to land this kind of job. Foundationally, you got to have the certification, right? Because you can't have a traditional certification and go and look for jobs in the coming days, because it's going to be completely driven by innovation and technical skills. That's what you need to understand, number one. Number two, as you acquire this certification, I see the way Microsoft, the way we think about is only one philosophy in life, right? The culture is driven by one philosophy, and that's very important. That's called growth mindset. If anyone has not heard about this philosophy or a culture, it's not for just the corporations alone. It is for every individual to have a growth mindset. What it means is very simple, that you are not born intelligent, right? It's very important takeaway that every single one here, whether he's a student or an entrepreneur or he's an senior executive, doesn't matter. What we believe and why Microsoft went 10 times in last 10 years in terms of stock is driven by one culture, that is growth mindset. What I want the students to take away is clearly, nobody is born intelligent. If you can train yourself, learn better, and articulate better, you can achieve greater heights. That is what is very important. And for the skill set within corporates, we have learning platforms, we have co-pilots. You can use the co-pilots to improve productivity. You can reskill your team. That's very important in the coming days. Skill development is not just limited to students alone, right? So if you want to grow your top line, you need to use these AI tools. You need to reskill your employees. Number two, for students, very important is get into AI learning fundamentals right now. Because every job, whether you're an engineer or you are doing finance or marketing or biotech, it doesn't matter. Every sector is going to be influenced by AI. AI illama, you cannot have a presentable resume
to go to the market and tell, I'm going to make changes. I'm going to drive some significant changes in your company. So important for you to have this understanding. Growth mindset, have the fundamentals clear, and go with confidence. That's my recommendation.
So, Cecil, நீங்க சொன்னீங்க AI fundamentals. அப்படின்னா என்ன? What is deep learning? I think this is a very open-ended, it's actually a conundrum because ChatGPT will give me something, Claude will give me something, Google Bard will give me something. So I think our students are very confused. I think it would be useful to them if each one of you can say deep learning. Let's pick a few attributes because see, CP, you mentioned calculus, right? You mentioned statistics. AI algorithm is evolving. Any algorithm, and students, those of you in programming world, you know that your life starts with pseudocoding. It starts with understanding algorithm. So you need to have algorithmic thinking. So Enge, where is the start point for this? What are the skills that you need, right? So let's take math. Maybe CP, you can touch on math. You can touch on how do you leverage a co-pilot for deep learning. And Suresh, you can come from another, maybe a vertical perspective. It's the same question, you know, if you can, each one of you can take 2 minutes. Because இது நம்ம வந்து ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு வந்து தெளிவாக demystify பண்ணுறது is very important, right? Otherwise it remains at a 10,000 feet level. So let's start with you.
I think, Ambika, one of the things that I have personally pursued as a person, and I believe in it when I teach as well, is that unless you have a very sound understanding of anything, you'll get away with using it. You can always apply technology. It's not difficult. It's becoming more and more easy to apply it today. You know, a smartphone, you don't really need to be very smart to use the phone. That's the beauty of the smartphone. You can get away through most of life without having depth of any of those knowledge, right? But without a sound grounding, foundationally, if you're not strong in something, as a faculty member, as a teacher, I always tell people, I have the benefit of being able to understand that side of the world where you educate somebody. I build systems for education. I have applied the same education in so many domains, so I see the value of that. So it's perhaps more visible to me than many people out there. But my personal belief is if you don't understand the foundations of what you're applying, it's going to be very hard. And today, one of the challenges with AI and ML is that everybody thinks it's some kind of a magical box. I was asked this question, by the way, and I grade 30, 40 papers a week, and I see ChatGPT content flowing in every day, right? The problem is not that they use it. If the tool is available, you should use it. It's a good thing. But when you don't understand what it's providing and you use it blindly, then there's an issue with that. From a depth of understanding standpoint, the fundamentals of all algorithms, whether AI or anything else, have always been some sense of math. You need a core foundational sense of mathematics before you can apply algorithms. Every software developer for the last 50, 60 years, without understanding what they're truly doing, they're literally manipulating zeros and ones in the microprocessor. So you need to understand what it's doing beneath if you really want to be effective. You can get away without it, but would you be effective? Using Copilot for code. I still write code, by the way. I love code. I'm a software engineer by academics. I love to write code. I like machine learning code nowadays. I enjoy it 100%. But I literally look to see what it is doing. A big topic in research today is interpreting a machine learning model, AI. Do we really understand what it's doing and why it's doing it? Is it even interpretable? Can we really see a decision tree of a million lines of code and you figure out what it's really doing? But you need to have some sense for that. Deep learning resides in probabilistic theory, right? So you need to understand some foundations of probability and mathematics if you want to excel in AI. Can you manipulate a data set with superficial knowledge? Absolutely. It's not hard to do that. Would you be effective? Would you be effective and efficient in doing so? Perhaps not. So my ask of anyone who's setting into the space of data, observational pattern behavior, distilling knowledge from a data set, making rules out of that and improving it day after day. Today, as we said earlier, in the world of the use cases for AI and ML or ML and AI, you're only limited by the limits of your imagination. If you can imagine the use case, you can implement it. It's not hard to do so. how far can you go in waking up every morning and determining what you would go on to do that day in the realm of your domain, but with the use of tools like ML and AI is only restricted to your imagination. There's no one else who's going to restrict us. And to do it rightly, ethically, perhaps is even more important. But with that in mind, understanding how it applies to your space perhaps is most fundamental.
So maybe I'm just going to, in the interest of time, I also want to open it for Q&A. If I'm just going to do a quick rapid fire on the co-pilot. So if you've got to list 2 skills which you think our students need to demonstrate today, over and above what is in the written text, what would that be?
So 2 skills.
Yeah.
So number one is I mentioned number one skill is your ability. You need to have resilience and perseverance in learning this AI, right? When we talk about deep learning, machine learning, and AI, so you have to bring it down to very simple understanding. For example, deep learning. Think about neurons in your brains, right? You have a neural networks that replicates neuron in your brains. You understand that. You get an information, you see the things, your brain processes it. Now I tell it is a bench or a chair or something. And then the same thing neural network does. When you simplify these concepts, when it looks so complicated, when you simplify it, then your ability to understand the fundamentals like Sir was talking about will be enhanced, right? And then your ability to adapt and apply those knowledge will also be enhanced in a way that you know the fundamentals very clearly. So deep learning is nothing but think about neural network equivalent to your neurons in your brain, processing it, making inference out of it. But then if I tell this is a table instead of chair, there is a reward function which actually punishes you, right? And then that is called reinforcement learning. So if you can distill down to these kind of smaller, simple steps in life, in this AI environment or AI learning, you will be much better off in terms of understanding. Simplify the concepts. Make sure everything is learnable. You are not somebody who was like, you cannot achieve that learning skills. AI is not a rocket science. You can simplify, learn it, adapt, and apply it. That will be my comments, yeah.
Suresh, you want to add to that quickly before we open for Q&A?
So in terms of learning skills, I will really divide it into 3 parts. You need, like what you mentioned, you will need to know TensorFlow, neural networks, all of that. For people who are building AI engines, like a ChatGPT or anything else, so that's a very core technological skill. This is for building the next generation of AI engines. So that's one opportunity. And again, algorithmic type of thinking, TensorFlow, probability, matrices, form a big part of building that type of a core AI engine. That's one job opportunity that's there. Those are the skills you require. The next one is, once you have an engine, then you can train the engine on different data sets. So that is, I want somebody who is great in investment banking. Then I do a lot of use cases, data sets to that engine. So training of an AI engine for specific sectors is another type of job opportunity that is emerging. And that requires different skill sets, some combination of technology, a lot more of domain expertise. Like if it is civil aviation, you need to know quite a bit about flying, but also know how to train the AI. So that's another set of job opportunity. The third, which is a lot more omnipresent, is once it's been trained, how do I use it? I am an investment banker working in Morgan Stanley. How will I use this AI that's now been trained to make my work simple? That's the third level of opportunity, which probably needs about 10-15% of technology, 85% of domain knowledge. And just to sort of demystify when people say use AI for this, use AI. I remember days when I was in IIT where everything was on log tables. Calculators were not allowed. Because they said if you bring in calculators, you will forget your tables, you will not know multiplication. I think it's a fact. A lot of people today would not know what is 27 into 33. They will use a calculator, but it has jumped productivity significantly, and that's what AI will do. It will jump productivity and it will create new opportunities.
Wonderful. So we'll open the forum for any questions. Audience, do you have questions for us? Quite a few hands there. Someone in the... Yeah, go ahead, please. Not very clear.
Hello.
Yeah, better now. Go ahead.
Actually, I have heard for every airport there is one ABC that
Air traffic.
manages the signal for every aircraft. So I mean around 6,500 aircrafts are entering and going out of India. How are these signals controlled just to only?
That's for you. So there are APCs which are controlling the movement of aircraft. So how are these? So like there are thousands of aircraft that use this. So how is this working?
So the air traffic management system is very complex and it's become far more prevalent in India now because I was told yesterday there were 6,000 airplanes in the sky at any point in time. Air traffic management is a set of rules, just like anything else. It's if you simplify it to what one of these people just said, if you demystify it down to the basics, an aircraft takes off from an airport. You speak to the ground controller to taxi to the runway. You speak to a tower controller. You perform your takeoff. Then you go to a set of center controllers when you're in flight, and then you talk to an approach controller, and you come back to the tower ground and you park your plane. So it's a simple sequence if you observe from ground to ground. And in the middle, as they sequence planes, there are a bunch of rules. The rules are you got to maintain separation in the air. It's basically a 2-mile separation for most planes. You get vertical separation, 2,000 feet until a decade ago. Today with advanced barometric and altimetric capability, because the sensitivity of GPS guidance, you can have airplanes as close as 1,000 feet beneath each other. So with that level, you can accommodate more planes in the airspace above. But the sequencing models are just a set of rules. And I just gave you a few of them. There are more, of course. But whether you're flying within inside the scope of a nation or you're traversing transatlantic, transoceanic flights from here to Dubai, Dubai to the US, across the Atlantic to the Pacific, the rules are exactly the same. They're no different. It's a set of rules. And the routing is all done in advance. Nowadays, you use AI for flight planning and flight trajectory routing to factor in headwinds, simplify fuel planning, and so forth. But for the most part, it's exactly the same sort of rules that I've applied for the 100 years. It's just gotten far more granular and more optimal as time has gone by.
So which means there is a lot of opportunity there because there are billions of data sets that's been collected over hundreds of years. Yep. So to make the system a lot more intelligent and improve the whole safety around air travel, right? So that's a huge opportunity.
Yes. I mean, this opportunity is, we used to use statistics, as I said, when I used to do work at United. We would do this 30 years ago. We would apply the statistics as is. We had mathematicians, industrial engineers, and operations research specialists with software developers who would write the code. So we were doing all that, but what it does today, it does it faster, learn on its own, and it's a huge opportunity for anyone who wants to be in aviation. I had a bunch of students yesterday when I was doing the aviation session. A lot of people who are interested in aviation. It's a booming economy. In India, of course, aviation is growing, high growth, high demand, in fact. The risk we will run is if you're not prepared, you'll have a safety problem. So, but for any one of you who's interested in aviation, the application of AI in aviation is a profound experience for most people. It's a fabulous opportunity.
Yes.
You know about the response to that is the stimulus response. Stimulus response. How artificial intelligence is a stimulus response. For a single service, we have different level of response. It happens with the human brain system in terms of when we work with the emotional intelligence. told about the neurotransmitters, how it works. So, in what way artificial intelligence can implement that way artificial intelligence, how far it works for a simple stimulus, different level of response how it takes.
So it's a great question. So what we are now heading is into AGI, right? From generative AI, we are getting into AGI. What it means is it is a multi-model. We are already multi-model. It doesn't need to be single stimulus response. You can have multiple stimulus and the response rate based on the training. Again, the large language models, the advantage of LLMs and SLMs is this thing. How accurate your data is, how good the training data set is, based on which your response rate is going to be pretty accurate. That's along with the neural network engines and the number of parameters you build, right? Again, do you want to build this as an LLM or SLM? That's a question you need to ask if you are going to incorporate either domain-specific data or you want multi-stimulus, and whether you want a good interpretability of the data as assets itself. So you need to decide what you want to get out of it. That is the most important decision an operator or the person who wants to drive this engine has to make, right?
Human beings will be trying for more transformation. Human beings will be trying for more transformation in a single different level of response. So we want to make that conditions from happy to whether it is possible or that to take up whether it exists.
There's definitely a lot of research is going on in terms of human interpretability and as well as other things. So what we need to understand is what type of stimulus response you want, what bias you want, ethical bias. Yeah, go ahead. Right. Correct.
So we have whether this data in what way that we have to give you the AA in conservation of taking place for a single of different level of responses.
Yeah, I think we can take it offline,
yeah.
and then debate on
explain
this.
the
Like,
models.
absolutely, we need to understand the models, and then whether you have a bias, whether you want what response you rate, based on which we can adjust the parameters and get it done. So we can take it definitely all offline. Yes. Right.
One second, if you're asking a question, I just have a request. Please introduce yourself. We'd like to know a little bit about who we are talking to. We'd like to know your background, so we'd love to hear from you, and then go ahead and ask a brief question.
Okay, I'm right? My question is to Christina. So, many providers performing the real it is generated reality and we have 80% of accuracy with the text to video and video to video. So, in the around deep case and a lot of going on, how what will be the place of
Nora. What will be the role of Nora? Nora. Nora is the latest AI. It helps you generate a whole lot of videos, interactive videos. So that's the new sensation. Videos. Nora, yeah. AI-based video generation. Animated videos.
I think generating videos using AI, I think will play a very, very significant part in all movie making going forward. Of course, there are lots of fits and starts. Even a couple of days ago, Google released a version for producing videos and it got into issues because it was not getting the color tones properly and it had to be sort of brought down. I think again, if you look at one big part of the movie making is the edit that happens post all the shoots. today it's an extremely time consuming work. We are already seeing a lot of tools being used. It used to be used even before, but one is starting to see a significant use of tools to do a lot of that work, especially automatic generation of videos to fill gaps. Sometimes what happens when you are doing an edit for a movie, you then realize there is a sequence that has not been shot at all. Now to get the call sheets to put those sets again is impossible, and it's extremely costly. Today a lot of that can be generated using a lot of these technologies. Early stages, because what you require on screen is a lot more precise than what you would need otherwise. But tools are already getting used. Animation is lot simpler when compared to real-time movie making. So animation, its adoption is already happening. I've seen some animated movies that have been produced completely by AI. There are awards that are now being announced for movies that have been taken by AI with zero human intervention. And there are awards being given, like the Oscar Awards.
My question is that exactly after this Sora thing and deep learning of deep fakes and all, right? So how we are going to mitigate the because Sora Astra is saying and now Sora is very powerful and it is basically with very good physics knowledge it is acting. So it is more realistic than what we expect. So how deep generation will be?
So you want to understand how the deep fake videos and content can be mitigated. So we didn't touch upon the regulatory and laws and governance yet, right? One of the challenges we forgot to mention earlier is the absence of governance and implementation of the regulation itself. And that's why when we develop, especially when Microsoft develops a product, we develop with responsibility, unbiased and ethical AI. That is one part. But these kind of platforms gives a rogue, a person to create and generate these kind of deep fake videos, and that destroys the personality or individual everything. Along with that, a parallel system, a regulatory system, governance system, laws has to be developed. What we are not talking about right now, as much as we are so excited about AI, somehow behind, like somebody, we have a notion that somebody will fix it. And that's not going to happen. The industry, academia, and the government has to come together to define regulations and law. And this has to be picked up as one of the important regulation that we need to implement right now across. World is looking at it right now, and pretty fast we are moving forward, putting the governance. Corporates are taking care of it, but that's not enough. So deepfake videos you can create from any platform. It doesn't need to be Nora or anything else, right? But the absence of regulation or the need for regulation is the key, and we have to nip it in the bud right now. That's the most important thing that we all should be working on, right?
Yeah, I think I want to add, so 2023 January is when the world woke up to ChatGPT. There was a code red announced by another competitor of Microsoft. 2024 is going to be an year of experimentation and maturation. We're going to see maturity as well. So, for all you know, 2025 could be an year where we say an augmented workplace, right? Could become a powered by AI workplace, just like we saw a digital native companies that are digital born. So we may see AI born companies. So what it means for all of you is that how are you going to use AI to enhance your skills in whatever you're doing today? So for instance, if you're a data engineer or you want to become a data engineer, how are you going to use all the AI tools that are available to you, right from a Copilot or let's say your Python frameworks, right? Or even a DAL-E image generator to create some very fantastic data visualization so that the end consumer, let's say the end consumer is a legal fraternity or a finance fraternity, they can consume it a lot more easily for decision making. That's the opportunity in terms of the skill ecosystem. Any other questions we
No,
have?
I'll just make a very quick comment on that.
Yeah.
I like the way Suresh Shah has put it. So if you have to build products, you got to know this thing from the fundamental. But that's not the opportunity. That's not the only opportunity you have. You can leverage this technology, AI, as an API, and you can be in healthcare. You can create products for entertainment industry. You can create products for finance industry. You don't need to build an LLM. That's a job that large companies are building. You don't need to build an SLM models. But what you need to do, can I leverage this and create products and services, or can I use this technology in my workplace? That's the most important thing. The other thing I heard yesterday was IIT in India, IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai is spearheading language models as a platform, India-specific models. We got to leverage. Those innovations cannot be exclusive to IITs alone. And how the governments will be working to leverage those innovations to percolate down to tier 2 institutions is going to be the key, right? These are the things. Again, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be an AI engineer to make a career out of it, to drive transformation. All you have to believe in it, your ability to use this thing, and that's why I like what Mr. Suresh has mentioned, right? Something very important.
Just to add one quick point, somebody was asking about deep fakes, and there is a whole lot of discussion and an emerging of laws. So, for instance, earlier, if there is a music that you own, there are today institutions like IPRS which tracks that music being used anywhere in the world, and they ensure you get credit for it. Now, if it is being done by AI, then who gets a credit? So if it impersonates an actor, a recent judgment that was passed about 6-7 months ago in the US says that the persona is owned by the person who created, his charisma created it, so it belongs to his estate. So even if a small piece of it is used by AI, then he gets credit. And then it's a question of if AI writes a book like Dan Brown, for instance, does Dan Brown get credit? So part of the AI engine when it is being developed, today it is also becoming mandatory for you to be able to trace from which data set and use case did it produce this content. And to that origin, IP credits are being given. And that's part of the emerging laws that are coming.
I think we'll have to wrap up.
Point to make.
Sure.
I also want everyone to know language models became really popular because of ChatGPT. But I have to tell you, it's just one little aspect of the overarching world of ML and AI. I think we are overtly obsessed about language models. Everyone only talks Gen AI now, and it's fashionable to discuss it. But there is such a big, vast world of machine learning and AI beyond language models. Remember, language models are very restricted in their own ways. It's very powerful as they appear today, but for any of you who wants a career in AI and ML, it's fascinatingly vast. It's much beyond anything we can comprehend in the context of ML alone.
So, thank you all of you. I think very insightful things. I'll just sum it up. We're out of time, we'll take it offline. I think the key takeaway for all of you and all of us, one, we are in very interesting times. We should not feel threatened by artificial intelligence at all. Primarily because those of you who've used Google very extensively, remember there was an icon called I'm feeling lucky? Remember? So today, with all the AI interfaces that are available to us, the knowledge, know something, that entire ocean of knowledge is coming to us in a very distilled and filtered manner. இது நம்ம வந்து 2 lakh search resultsலேருந்து filter பண்ண தேவையில்லை. நமக்கு filter ஆகி information வருது. So what is it that we need to do as skills? And the information that comes to us on a plate, we should have the capability to process it, validate it, verify it, consume it, and advance further. So we live in very interesting times today. On that note, I just want to leave a question with you. So it's called artificial intelligence for a reason. The intelligence is coming from humans like you and me. So if robots had to get together and gossip about human beings, what language do you think they will use? Any guesses? If robots got together and they had to gossip about human beings, what language will they use? So I will leave you guessing on that note. Thank you very much, gentlemen,
Thank
for
you.
a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you. That was truly insightful. I want to take a moment and say thank you. You broke down so many complex concepts and made it simple for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our fabulous moderator and our fabulous speakers. I'm sure the two robos will speak in Tamil, but I'm going to take a moment here and request the moderator to felicitate our, speakers on stage with a memento. It's our way of saying thank you to you. I now request Mr. Anish Shekhar, MD Court, to felicitate our moderator. Thank you. So I asked